Hi there, welcome to Ewansu YouTube channel again. Today I'd like to share with everyone one of my worst property investment experience, which I think by sharing on this topic, I would want everyone to also learn from my past mistake and be able to avoid it. Everyone knows that when it comes to property investments, the magnitude of dollars that is involved is easily hundreds of thousands. So I would always think that by me sharing my past mistake, I would definitely hope that people out there who have watched my channel will be able to avoid this costly mistake and be able to become better investors and do not have to go through their own experience and go through their own mistake before they learn it. They can always learn from other people's mistake, and including mine. This is the whole purpose of my channel anyway. Okay, let's get started. If you have watched my previous video, I have actually shared with everyone when our Malaysia property market actually went through a boom, which was somewhere in year 2010 onwards, as early as 2010. In fact, our local property market was in a boom until it peaked in 2013 and also in 2014 before it came tumbling down starting early 2015 and thereafter until today, which is year 2020. Remember, I did share that I started my property investment journey since year 2008, and then 1 year later I decided to join as a property consultant in order for me to be a better investor by understanding the whole industry better, as well as the trend and all that. So when it comes to 2012, at the point of time, our local property market was actually very hot, I would say. Everyone was actually talking about property investment, then everyone was profiting from property investment. So it's hot. It's unlike now. Now we are like in a property winter. At that point of time, we are like in property summer. Hot. It's hot. Okay. Then this property investment was actually an insider deal. It was recommended by one of my hubby's good friend. So this mixed development was actually located in USJ, and we stay in Penang mainland. So we are not very familiar with that location, and in fact it's quite a distance from mainland to go to USJ. How did we end up buying that property? In fact, it was just purely by my hubby's best friend telling us that, hey, this is a good deal, and we are going to get special deal, on top of the regular package that the outside buyers getting. We are going to get something extra on top of that because we know the developer's nephew. So we are supposed to be getting a very good deal, like extra discount and all that, and it was supposed to be a service suite, like those Soho type, under commercial title, and the building is also under commercial. At that time in year 2012, I was still learning when it comes to property investment. So far before that, I have bought a completed sub-sale property, and I've also bought direct one residential under construction property from developer. So this would be our first time buying commercial under construction property. And usually in the past, before I bought any be it sub-sale or residential under construction property, I would do a fair bit of my own due diligence and checking, and most of the locations that I bought are locations that I'm familiar with, which is within mainland and as far as Penang Island only. So this time we actually ventured to KL, USJ, due to recommendation by my hubby's good friend. So we actually signed the SPA in August 2012, and this development was supposed to be completed by 4 years later, which is supposed to be 2016. So because it's under commercial and we are able to get commercial loan, we are no longer bounded by the loan to value 70% for property on the third property onwards. So we actually took up 80% loan instead of 85%. So we paid a fair bit of down payment for it. And I remember that project itself was under DIBS. If you all know what is DIBS means, that for the whole construction period of 4 years, the developers is going to bear the interest during the whole construction period. So what we do on our part is just a little bit of down payment and legal fees. I remember that time only the SPA legal fees will be paid by the developer. The loan disbursement and the stamp duty we got to pay on our own. But still we bought it, and we don't only bought one unit. In fact, we bought 3 units. No, great. This is called great. Okay, we thought that upon completion 2016, we can actually maybe flip 2 units and then keep 1 unit for ourselves. But at that point of time, I being quite a new property investor, I totally ignore the property cycle. That once a property experience boom, it will not be long before it will actually tumble down. And 2012, there wasn't any announcements of GST would be implemented when it comes to 2005. So all this actually played its role in taking the market down when the GST was being announced in April 2005. So happily we paid book for 3 units, we paid for it, and also we are like having this beautiful dream that upon completion we can actually cash out when we flip 2 units, and then another 1 units we are going to rent it out. And that time my hubby's friend even told us that the developer has a plan to actually sign a contract with the colleges nearby, because if you all know, USJ area is actually surrounded by quite many colleges. So according to the insider, he told us that the developer would be signing agreement with all these colleges that we would provide them hostel or accommodations for their students. So everything seems like good, because that was actually one of my worry, because we are like staying so far, it will be quite impossible for us to manage getting tenant and all that. We will have to look for a good and trustworthy agent based in that area. But when the insider told us that the developer has a plan to actually in contract with the colleges nearby to provide them with accommodations to their students, everything looks well, right? So we skipped doing due diligence, as I would always do. And I didn't even check what is the whole master plan, just by hearsay that there would be a shopping complex downstairs, and all. Then upstairs would be our service suite, and then there will be contracts signed with colleges that the students will come and rent from us. No, that's all. So we just put in our hard-earned money for 3 units, just purely based on insider deals and hearsay without any due diligence on our part. So I would say these are partly motivated by greed and partly motivated by the kiasu feelings that, hey, I don't want to miss out on this deal, so I must jump in before it's gone, you know. So this is wrong. Then when it comes to 2016 August, it was supposed to be 4 years and hand it over completion to us. But when nothing happens, that's when I start to get worried. And then eventually they actually formed a group chat, for all the buyers in that area. Then eventually we got to know that actually people who stay nearby that area, they actually went to take pictures, take video. In fact, the construction activity has been inactive for more than 6 months continuous, So a lot of other buyers start to get worried whether does that mean abandoned, because usually for project, if the construction activity has stopped continuously for 6 months without any application by the developer to the authority for extension or delay, it will be classified as abandoned. So all of us were quite worried and all that. And then there also a phenomenon where the banks start asking us for interest payment. Remember earlier I said that all these 3 units that we bought, this whole project, in fact, it was supposed to be under DIBS, Developers Interest Bearing Service. Means that throughout the whole construction period, developers supposed to pay the interest to the bank. So when we started receiving letters from our bank asking us to pay for the interest, we knew that something is wrong. So when we tried to email and call the developer's office, the phone always ring and ring without anyone picking up, And when we emailed to them, nobody replied, or it took like 1 to 2 months before someone replied to us. Then eventually we get some correspondence from them, from the developer, to say that asking us to pay interest to the bank first, so that the bank will continue to disburse a loan to them, and then we are supposed to claim back the interest from them. But it was a very messy process, because when we paid the interest, we are supposed to keep a record of how much we pay, and when we paid, we have to print the receipt that we have paid and all that. And when we claim, we send the claim to them through email, and then we are supposed to go down to the office in USJ to get a physical check. And when my hubby went down to their office to get the physical check, the amount that they issued to us versus the amount that we paid does not tally. So their whole account was like very messed up. So in fact, up to now, it's 2020, the project is still abandoned. And then for our side, we still have to continue to service the interest every month for 3 units, which is still abandoned. Okay, and then good thing is that last year there was actually because this development was actually a JV, joint venture, between the developer and the landowner. So eventually this landowner was actually able to invite another developer to come in and continue to finish up the whole project, and there will be some changes in the building and architecture and all that. And then they told us that our side, as the buyer, we have to give this new developer another 4 years to complete this whole building, because there are changes, major changes in the whole architecture and drawing and all that. So we are also asked to continue to service the interest. And then one thing that I think I have done quite well in mitigating the whole situation is when the bank asks for further release of loan, even after the SPA duration is over, because the SPA was signed on 2012 and supposed to be within 4 years, they are supposed to give us a completed project handover. So after 2016, when the project was still not done, not completed, and when the developers still continue to bill our bank for further release of loan, thank God the banker or the financier that we get is actually from public bank. They actually bother to ask us as the customers whether do we want to release the loan to this developer. And when they ask, they send a letter to me and follow up with a call. I find it weird, because I asked this bank, why is it that you have to ask us when we have already signed the LO and all the legal documentation earlier when we purchased this property? Then this banker told us, oh, because the SPA that we have signed, in fact, it has already lapsed, because it's beyond 2016 now, and then now the developer is still billing us for further release of loan. So we need to get customers' consent to release it. So because I did study a bit about law, so I know that when it comes to contract, time is of essence. So as long as if they do not comply with the timeline in the contract, in fact, I would say that the developer has already breached the contract. So anytime I can actually choose to terminate the whole contract. But I have also allowed the bank to disperse almost 50% of the loan already. And when the financier, the bank asked us for consent for further release, I actually put a stop on it, because at the point of time we already have a group chat, a WhatsApp group chat, and we already received video and pictures that the construction activity has actually stopped for more than 6 months, and yet this developer still bill our bank for further release. Then I asked this bank, did you actually look at the certificate of architecture to certify that they have actually completed this stage before they ask you for further release? And the bank said, yeah, they did actually attach together with the architecture certificate to say that they have already almost 90% completed the whole building, so now they are calling for further release. Then I sent those videos that I gathered from the group chat. I said, do you look at this video that was taken recently, do you think that this building is 90% completed? I said, when your bank receive this architecture certificate, do you all actually get your staff to personally go down to that location itself to verify, or you just purely based on the certificate of the architecture to release loan? The banker told us that they just based on the certificate to release loan, they actually have got no time to get their staff to go down to the actual location to double verify that it has indeed reached that state. So I said no, in this case I'm not going to consent for further release of the loan, because I know that the building construction has already stopped for quite some time, and I got no idea where they get this certificate of architect to say that they have completed almost 90% of the building. So I'm not going to consent for further release of the loan, because I want to mitigate our loss as well. So this bank, they're also very smart. They say, okay, if you really don't want us to release, you have to give us a letter of indemnity, to indemnify us that in the event if the developer were to take any legal actions due to them not releasing the further disbursement, we would have to actually bear the responsibility. I said, oh, we go ahead. I would write letter that you need, in order to mitigate our loss, because I already know that in the first place the developer has already breached the contract, so there is no case for them to actually file and then to say that I actually breached the contract for not allowing further release, because the fact is the construction activity has already stopped. And I would say there's some element of fraud in here. I mean, when the construction has already stopped, how did they actually able to furnish, come up with a certificate of architecture to say that they have completed 90% of the building, right? So I give them the letter that they want, so they also stopped further release. So we actually mitigated our loss up to 50% of the loan. So we booked 3 units, so 3 of our units, the loan amount has been disbursed 50%. The other 50% of the loan was stopped by me. But in the group chat, I get to know that there are many other buyers where they got their loan from other banks. The banker did not actually care to call them or give them a letter to ask them for their consent, even though the SPA date has already lapsed, and the bank would just release 100% based on the certificate of architecture that the developer sent it to them. So very sadly, all these buyers, they would have to continue to service full interest for the full loan that has been disbursed for a building that is only completed halfway, and up to now we are still servicing the interest, paying the interest to the bank for 50% of the loan which has been disbursed. And then now we are being informed that we have to give this new developer another 4 years. Okay, so what I have learned from this incident is the mistake that we have made is, firstly, do not be greedy. That at a point of time we actually acted out of euphoria, The market was so hot, everyone was into property investment, so we have this we don't want to miss out the boat kind of psychology, and we just jump into the boat without doing our due diligence. So first thing, we act irrationally according to euphoria. The euphoria was at its height, and our kiasu feeling was at play. Second, we failed to do any due diligence, and we just based on hearsay from the insider, okay, and greed as well. Third, I have to specify that when it comes to commercial title land and commercial building, be aware that the SPA sales and purchase agreement is very different from residential building, because residential building, their sales and purchase agreement is governed by Ministry of Housing according to Schedule H or Schedule G, depend whether is it high-rise or landed. But when it comes to commercial building, it's not governed by our Housing Ministry at all. The contract or the sales and purchase agreement is purely based on how the developer wants to word it on the sales and purchase contract, and most of the time it's a bit tipped towards more favorable to the developer side, and the amount that we are supposed to pay, it's not according to any schedule at all. The developer can just put in their own schedule, and whenever they want to take the amount we have to pay is all at the whims of the developer. So the buyer side, we have got less protection, less protection. So from my experience out of these incidents is that when we want to buy under construction commercial building, please firstly get our own lawyer to vet through the SPA. Secondly, always buy from established public listed developer. This developer that we bought from is not that established. They have been in business for less than 10 years and they are not even public listed. Even though a lot of people knows that when it comes to development of new project, all these public listed company, they will set up their own subsidiary to build, but they actually market under their public listed name. But I would believe from the experience that I've seen, all these public listed company, they care a lot about their image and they are way better in managing their finances and also cash flow. So the chances of abandonment is way lesser compared to a non-established, non-public listed developer. And third, maybe I would even get bank loan from a bank who would actually give us insurance against abandonment. Like I know Affin Bank, they do provide a loan where in the event of abandonment, they will cancel the whole loan and we as the customer do not have to pay any more interest and the whole loan will be cancelled off. So I would opt for that. Okay, so this is the worst mistake that we have done throughout our property investment journey, but it does not deter us from continuing to invest in property. In fact, it makes us a better investor and we actually progress from there. But I also get to know that some of those buyers who got into this same abandoned project, from that moment onwards, they dare not venture into property investment anymore, because to them, property investment is like a trap and it's very dangerous. But for us, we know where we went wrong and we learn from it. So today, that's the reason why I'm doing this channel, just to share and disseminate the experience, be it good or bad, to all my audiences, so that you all can also learn from each other and emerge as a way better investors. So that's all for my sharing today. I hope that if you guys find that my sharing has benefited you a lot, I would appreciate you guys to give a thumbs up to this video, as it would help a lot in the YouTube algorithm and it means a lot to me as well. Okay, that's all for today. Thanks for watching, and meantime, stay safe and bye.